Welcome to Zeens and Roger. My name is Rosina and I am a crochet designer. Currently, I'm sat in my living room surrounded by piles of books. What I've done is dug out what I think is probably most, if not all, of my crochet books, and I've put them into little piles and they're surrounding me, and I just thought I would talk to you about them, if that's all right. It might give you an idea of the kind of thing you're looking for if you want to stock up on a few books. It might allow you to decide which ones you need and which ones you don't. And it's just good for me to see it all, actually, and whether or not I need them all. There's a few I probably don't. And actually doing this exercise means I'm looking around me going, well, there are some here I don't think I've really ever opened, or, you know, maybe flicked through once or twice and then not used them. So I wonder if I'll Marie Kondo as I go. I don't know. But what I've done is kind of roughly gone for a few different categories of books. I've gone for learning to crochet. I've gone for crochet garment books, amigurumi, stitch dictionaries, vintage, and then kind of like blocks and borders I've put in a category. I'm not sure why they go together, but there we are. And then also I've got a nice big pile of books that are by authors with their specific kind of collections, like their albums, if you will, of their designs. I'm not really sure what they're called other than crochet collections. I don't know. So, well, let's start at the beginning, and that is learning how to crochet. And actually, I don't have as many of these because maybe like many of us, we learned via YouTube. And although I was my nana tried to teach me when I was young, and I managed to learn how to do a crochet chain. That was about as far as I got when I was a kid. And it wasn't until I was an adult that I learned how to crochet properly and used YouTube to help me. But there was one book that helped me more than any other, and it's this unassuming book that I found, I think, probably on Amazon. And whether or not it's right or wrong, Amazon is where I've gotten the majority of my books. But also charity shops and jumble sales. And there's there's a shop in the UK called The Works, which is like a bit of a mishmash of toys and art materials and crafting supplies, as well as just random books. And every now and again, if you pop in to one of the branches, they're all over the country. I'm sure you've heard of The Works if you're in the UK. Every now and again they'll have a whole stash of new crochet books that are really cheap, like £4, and so I used to buy them from there a lot too. And then I get gifted books too. So this one was on Amazon, and actually I really used this a heck of a lot. It was maybe £4 or £5. And it is for the very, very beginner. And I think I did it step by step and followed all the exercises. And it was a brilliant learning tool. So the illustrations are very, very simple. And also there's a few patterns in here for a beginner to learn, including how step by step of the granny. I still work my grannies the way I learned in this book, I think. Yeah, fairly sure. But there's some simple patterns in here too, which are I think I remember trying to make this one. I don't even know if I succeeded. I think I made this cushion. That's a good thing about this beginner's book, is that there's charts too. So I would always recommend that one. And actually, when I've been shopping in small yarn shops and things, they've often had that one by the till. I say often, like I went in one shop and they had it by the till and I was impressed because I knew it was a good book. Ladybird book. So this should be in my vintage retro pile, but actually it's in my learning to crochet pile because again it is really for beginners, but I love it because it's just like wash your hands before you crochet. Number 1, wash your hands and dry them before crochet work begins. Number 2, keep your fingers, hands and wrists quite relaxed and never stiff. And again, illustrations on just the very, very early stages. And then, yeah, there's a granny pattern, very lovely things. It's a beanbag for a baby, illustrated, just in case you weren't sure. A Dolly's dress. And my favourite, I think it's in this one. Perhaps not. Dolly poncho. Do you know what? I thought there was a man's tie in there as well. I've got both. These are both Ladybird books. Do you know what? I thought they were the same. Oh, they are the same. Yeah, on the inside. I just started to wonder there because I couldn't find what I was. Could not find what I was looking for. Just a tie for a younger brother. For some reason. I don't know why, but I like that tie. You can see how dusty these are as well. I mean, I don't often look them up. This is another old one. Learn to crochet. I would not recommend this one if you've never picked up a crochet hook though. It assumes an awful lot, and actually some of the, I think I've made some of the braiding and the instructions are not overly clear, but it does have some stitch patterns. I won't go into detail about all the books, just so you know, because otherwise we'd probably be here for about 7-8 hours or more, so I'm not going to do that. But actually I should use this one more often because I do like the things in it. That's a really nice top. But this one was my nana's, and so I very much like that one, and it's got some lovely patterns in there, but it does actually said on the bottom, directions are included for left-handed workers. That's quite good, isn't it? Very serious men in their serious ties of crochet. They're pretty cool. I've got a crochet tie. I think it's about the time I had another one. There's this one as well. I think I bought this one on Amazon as a second-hand book, and it's part 1 of Basic Crochet by a guy called James Walters. That's one of the ones that I flicked through and never done anything else about. I haven't done anything with it. And then this one is a good all-rounder as well for learning how to crochet, which is by Tracy Todd Hunter. And it's basically starts at the beginning, has loads of different details about all the notions and all the basics, different yarn weights, hooks, etc. and notions, how to hold the hook. Again, one that's starting from the beginning, and then it also has patterns in it as well. I really like that one as an all-round learning to crochet book. And then again, as an all-rounder, this one's quite good. So you're going from the very basics to a bit more sort of a whole package. This one is pretty good. It's very good actually. It's got loads and loads and loads of patterns in it, covering all kinds of crochet styles and techniques. Therefore, it's a good one if you just want to try lots of different things. And I can't remember what page number it is. But I've got a pattern in there as well, which is one of the reasons why I have the book in the first place, because they asked me to design a C2C project for them, which I did. See if I can find a picture for you. There you go. It's a C2C hook case. So those are kind of good for beginners and learning new techniques and things like that as a beginner. So I don't have very many of those because, as I said, I learnt on YouTube. So I'm not sure what we should jump to next. Let's go to stitch dictionaries, I think. Stitch dictionaries are books that I said I would never buy. I didn't need them because I just wanted to work patterns. I didn't want a stitch dictionary because why would I need one if I just wanted to make other people's patterns? So if that's all you want to do, then I wouldn't bother with stitch dictionaries at all. But what happened is that I became a designer, and at the beginning I didn't know that that was going to happen. And then as I first embarked on design, I didn't have stitch dictionaries, and I also didn't realise that you were allowed to use stitch dictionaries for design. I thought you had to make up everything from scratch, including the stitch pattern, which is nonsense. I mean, by all means make up your own stitch patterns, that's fine, that's cool, but stitch dictionaries are there as a useful tool. I've got these are my stitch dictionaries. You can of course find the stitches online. I've got this, and it's only from sorting out all these books today did I realise I had this. I don't know, I don't remember ever buying it, but I must have done. That was from the works, I think, for a few pounds. All right for a pocket dictionary. It's got a kind of, most of these have a breadth of different styles, so you'll focus on a few of each, basic little stitches through to more dramatic, decorative, bold stitch patterns. They'll all have different multiples, they'll have different, maybe different categories such as ripple section, puff stitch section, filet section. It's up to you to decide which ones you think are up your street or not. I've got some old ones which quite often aren't great if you're a beginner, but they're fine if you are an established crocheter. But there's all sorts of things in them, different stitches. You've got the instructions, you've got pictures. My favourite stitch dictionaries actually have charts as well as written instructions, and a lot of them don't. These are sort of charity shop finds, but they're perfectly nice stitch dictionaries, but I don't use them very often. They sit on a shelf for the most part. This is another old school one. Again, this one's quite good actually. I do like it. It's got a nice broad selection, and it has lots of nice edgings as well. A good stitch dictionary. How many times can I say that? Not only has like the main stitch patterns, but it also has different categories. Quite often they have sections with Tunisian crochet in them, and then but edges and borders and things like that too. A complete guide to crochet stitches. Quite often I just even the covers I like looking at, and that's cool. But what you'll find with the old school ones is that they're in black and white. It's not a bad thing necessarily, but it's worth noting, I guess. And some are, yeah, better than others. This one's quite a good one, Sarah Hazel, because it has the charts as well as the written pattern. It doesn't have row by row, but more step 1, step 2, and sometimes I think for the most part step 1 equates to row 1 or what have you. And not only that, but also a couple of pictures on how to as well. So it's got it all. That's a good one. As is this. This is good. I've swatched a few out of this before, and I've really liked what I've worked up each time. This is another one by Tracy Todd Hunter, and has lots of different stitches as well. You will notice that each dictionary has its own collection, and some of them are going to cross over, so you're going to have duplicates, but then you'll find new ones too, so they're not all the same. Some are small, some are big, blah blah blah, but this one's quite a big one, and actually these are a bit elaborate for me, and I don't often use this dictionary purely because most of them are a little bit over fancy for me, and also I think the nature of the yarn used to make the samples, the stitch definition isn't that great. So I have found that when I've worked up swatches and samples, they don't really look much like the ones photographed. I mean, it's very artfully done, all in like an ecru shade of ecru, but I think the tension and the stitch definition is different to what mine is, so it always ends up looking a bit different. But there's loads of them, 500. This one is Linda P. Schapper, or Schapper. I have no idea the prices of any of these, by the way. I guess they will fluctuate. This one just has written instructions, and I don't often find myself reaching for this one. And this one's a really nice one. Is this Erica Knight? I made that up. Do you know, I thought it was Erica Knight, but I must have made it up because her name's not on it. Anyway, this one has some pretty stitch patterns, and again it has charts as well as the written instructions, so that wins it points. And then it has subcategories, and the thing I like about this one is that they're all separated by a colour tab at the top of the page. There's kids next door screaming because it's half term. I think they're screaming with joy rather than anything else. And then, so there's a section on sort of row by row stitch patterns. There's a section on square motifs and in the round motifs. Then there's edging and trims. And every now and again I like leafing through that one. But we've come to my two faves. This one, which is by Dora Orenstein. Crochet Every Way Stitch Dictionary, because it has lots of shaping for each stitch. It makes it really good if you're curious about how those stitches build in increases and decreases, and maybe curves, maybe corners. So if you want to design a garment and you need to work out maybe some shaping for shoulder or underarm, or maybe that's a different part of the garment that you need, you've got advice on and also the chart on how to make those adjustments. I think that's really, really useful, and it's well worth investing in this book for that reason. You may not want to... I've used this book before and not gone with the increase is recommended in this, but it's been helpful in learning how I could increase it differently should I have wanted to, which I did. So just knowing that you can play around and there's no rules necessarily, this book gives you confidence in how you might make those changes, you know. So, and there's good hints and tips at the beginning as well about reading the stitch charts, making swatches and what not. And then there's this one, which is probably not mega old. I haven't had it more than a year or two, I don't think. I don't buy very many crochet books anymore, just because I figure I've got enough. This one was published in 2016. It's Melissa Leapman's Indispensable Stitch Collection for Crocheters. It's got 200 stitch patterns in words and symbols. And I think it's fantastic. It has stitches that a lot of my other dictionaries don't have, and I've never seen them until this book. And so it's invaluable. It has lots of different stitches that are separated into chapters. And then section 2, there's a resources section, which I've never even bothered looking at, but let me do it now. Oh, it's just this sort of the chart symbols for crochet and the technique, photos of illustrations of techniques and things, which you will see actually in most crochet books, regardless of whether or not it's for beginners or people that have got loads of skills under their belt already. You'll probably find 9 times out of 10 that most crochet books have step-by-step illustrations on how to do the basic stitches. But this Melissa Leapman one I love, and I know I love it because it's got a load of bookmarks in it. It has edgings too, and just some really nice stitch patterns. But I don't want to show you them in case you find out which ones I've got my eye on. Let me see if I can find one that I'm not fussed about, or one that's not bookmarked by me. Well, interestingly, this has become a very popular stitch of late. I've just finished a cardigan, not one of my designs, but I've just used this stitch, which is in this book called Almond Ridges. So a play on that. It's a really nice stitch to work up actually. So I just actually, the quality of this book, the feel of it, I really like, and I really like the graphics on the front. Yes, I do judge a book by its cover. What I don't have is many books specifically for garments, because I think crochet garments, good crochet garments, the concept of that is in its infancy. Really, compared to when you compare it to knitting, there's not as much choice. And actually, I haven't really sought out books to do with garments for crochet. But what I have got is all right. Apart from, I'm going to be completely honest, this is an old school one from the 90s, and I'm not keen on this one. I think for me, it's the style of the patterns are not my cup of tea. So it's a little bit dated there. But it's not to say you're not going to be able to get some use out of it. But just, I bought this having stumbled across it online, secondhand, and because I was looking out for garment books. But no, it's not my cup of tea. This is more in line with modern crochet. So this is called My Crochet Wardrobe by Cassie Ward, and it has some really lovely and easy patterns to follow. I've made a jumper out of it. Not this one, but that's the kind of thing you might find in it. So I think these are more modern and more wearable. And the instructions when I made a jumper in here were super easy to follow. It's a mixture of fun things and proper things to make. And this is one of the first books I ever bought thinking that I was going to churn out jumper after jumper, and I didn't really make any garments for ages, but this one I must have had in my collection for 10 years. And I've only made one thing out of it, but it's got loads of really nice things. Contemporary Crochet by Sis Friedens. But it's got some hats and bags and shawls, but it also has some really nice garments. See, I want to make this one day, a mohair jumper. Skirts, tops, jumpers. I made that hat once. I never wore the hat I made. It's funny because I'm having flashbacks of when I was an absolute beginner making this granny hat, but getting my US and UK terms confused, so it came out looking awful. It's a testament actually how I think this book is long lasting, that after 10 years there's things in here I still want to make. And they are you know, modern, still wearable items. I think at the time the only thing was that I didn't have the knowledge of yarn weights to be able to substitute the yarns that were recommended in the book. Geek Crochet, you can find this really cheaply online now, Nikki Trench. I really like this book actually. It's got some short skirts. I don't know if you remember, but once upon a time I made this linen stitch skirt and I made it way too small and it looked awful, but actually if you made that properly it would look really good. But there's dresses in here and jumpers and cardigans. See if I can show you an example. Oh, that's a nice matching vest top as well to the linen stitch. Didn't know that was in here. See, I haven't opened this book for years. All sorts of things. Another tie. How funny. What is it about? They just like bung a tie in every now and again. Let's see what else. Just let me find one with mittens, gloves in here, and then also some sort of colour block jumper. I've got a couple more Dora Ornstein books. Oh, that I'm going to drop. This one is Custom Crocheted Sweaters. Make garments that really fit. This one has loads of tips about construction and adjusting things to make them fit. So each design in here has been chosen so that it can be talked about how you might adjust it, I think. And there's lots of information at the beginning as well about how to read schematics, how to block garments, because that's so important when you're making your own stuff. lots of information about measuring your body as well, how to choose yarns. I think actually it's a very thoughtful book. There's lots of different styles, which I think is good, a good mix of things to try. And I think I prefer it over top-down crochet sweaters, which, although beautiful in the main part, they're not my style. It is good in terms of discussing, again, construction and fit. Talks about gauge and drape. I might actually have to read this bit about creating an underarm, because I'm trying to do that for this top at the moment, which I've succeeded quite well, but it's not exactly how I want it just yet. But yeah, I could do with reading creating the underarm and adjusting for fit at the underarm, which would be quite good. But it shows a picture of the underarm and its stitches and things like that. It's just that the patterns themselves I would never make, but I might make this one because I don't know if you can see, but it's called Rosina. I remember when I opened this book. I mean, it must be a fairly recent purchase, like a year ago, and I bought it and I was overjoyed to have a pattern that was called my name. But it's not one I like. Doesn't matter if I like them or not. The advice in between, if you just read it as a book rather than following the patterns. It's got some informative stuff in there. Glad I've just opened it up at the page about underarms, because I'll read that. And then just squeezing into the garment section category is this one about socks, crochet socks. And I do actually have, I've just remembered that I've got a Crochet Project pick and mix pattern book, but I've only got the digital copy, so I can't show that off, but it's got some good looking garments in it that you can pick certain stitches for and match up with the body and with different things and make it a cardigan or make it a jumper. Look up the pick and mix Crochet Project book. It's only Diddy. It will be only Diddy. As I said, I don't have a physical copy, but it'll be one that's about that big. But it has hats, jumpers and cardigans in it that you can mix and match the stitch patterns with, which I think is a really good idea. But this one I bought quite recently, but it is loads of different types of socks. And whilst it is in Japanese, all the Japanese books that I have that are related to crochet have charts. So this one has got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, maybe about 20 pairs of socks. I've completely miscounted. Some are duplicates. I think you've got kid sizes and grown-up sizes, but they're all different sorts of shapes of socks and different patterns too. And although I'm still not 100% sold on crochet socks, I do still want to make some, and therefore I bought this book just to kind of see what was out there and to see if I would enjoy making different sorts. Maybe, just maybe, I'd be able to follow these charts. I can also hover my phone over the text if I want to try and translate that. Let's whiz through quickly crochet borders and blocks. I don't think I've looked at this one properly yet. Every Which Way crochet borders, Edie Ekman, charts again, which is good. And it's funny, you wouldn't believe how many times you get a book about edgings and they don't go around the corner and you go, well, how do I increase to create the right shape? As in, I don't think this one is like hundreds of classic and original patterns on edges and borders, but none of them go around a corner. So bear it in mind. They give you great ideas for somewhere to start, but you might have to engage your brain a little bit to work corners if you wanted to do a blanket or a shawl. It's got an array of different ones, but again, they're quite frilly for me, and so I don't look at this as much as I used to. And then in my, do you have like books like this in your collection? I mean, I've looked at it in the past because it's got bookmarks in it. What did I bookmark? Why did I bookmark that? No idea. I don't remember. Maybe I was going to turn it into a square one day. Who knows? But just little books like this, they can be quite useful, can't they? And then I've got the other Edie Aikman crochet book as well, which I have used a few times, and I used to look in this one a lot. And it has a mixture of elaborate shapes and more simple patterns as well. I'm definitely one who veers towards the more simpler patterns. Not necessarily just because they're easier, but I think aesthetically they look nicer. The good thing about this one is it's got a ring binder, so you could just like flap it open wherever you want it. Always useful if you're crocheting and using the book at the same time. And then I've got a couple of these as well. This one is well thumbed. Jan Eaton 200 crochet blocks for blankets, throws and afghans. What I will say, I think I've used this quite a lot, this book, but I've got this vague notion at the back of my head that I made several different blocks from this book to make one blanket, and all the blocks, all the squares had different stitch counts at the end, and it really infuriated me because at the time I wasn't confident enough to know that that was okay, and I could just kind of fudge things, or maybe look to find ones that were more more similar in their stitch count at the end. But I can remember being frustrated by that, and they doesn't look like there is much of a thing of stitch count at the end of rounds and things. So it's worth bearing in mind, but actually outweighing that is the variation of stitches you get. Blocks. I really like the ones you get. So again, oh gosh, in the old days I used to make a lot of baby blankets for people, and I think I used to use that book to make those blankets with. And then because I only had one, I bought this one as well to just see if I could find a few more variations on like a granny square. I'm a granny square traditionalist, so I like the bog standard granny, but not everybody does, so I found that it's useful to have inspiration at your fingertips. What I'm going to do is stop here, and then I figured that actually I could do a part 2 with more books, because actually, do you really want to sit here and listen to me for over an hour just talking books? I'm splitting it into 2. I'm ever so sorry, but also maybe, hopefully, you'll like that, because there's quite a lot. I didn't realise how many books I had actually. So I will see you for part 2 for lots and lots of vintage books, and all those books by specific designers who have their collections published, and then some amigurumi books too, which are they're here on my lap, so I'll talk about those next when I've got a fresh cup of tea. So I will see you for part 2. Maybe I'll put it up the top, maybe I won't, I don't know. Thank you very much. Chatting them in. Bye bye.